John Bonham once said something very interesting about image. Let's listen in here to what he had to say.
I think these days that let's say the public, let's not just say the kids, because we've had sort of all sorts of people at concerts, Mm-hmm. I think that they're coming to listen to what you're playing and not just to look at you and see what you are. I mean, I remember when let's go back a few years, when I first went to see the Beatles, because we've mentioned them a few times, it was to look at them, It wasn't, you didn't really bother what you were listening to.
Yeah.
And today, it's not what you are, it's what you're playing. And
basically, what Bonham is saying in that clip is that sound is the truth, and that's interesting because a drummer like Akane Hirose might be one of the most visually defined drummers out there today. So here's the question. If you were to take her image away, could she still pass the John Bonham test? Band-Maid has a very specific identity. The image is deliberate, the presentation is theatrical, but none of that matters. If the drumming doesn't hold up on its own, the music won't survive. So instead of focusing on how Band-Maid looks, we're going to focus on how Band-Maid sounds, and we're going to judge Akane by three things that define John Bonham's drumming: power, phrasing, and space. When people talk about John Bonham, they usually start with power, but it wasn't just about volume, it was about weight. Every note felt like it landed with purpose. There was depth in the kick, authority in the snare, and a kind of physical presence behind every fill. Now, listen to Akane. She doesn't copy Bonham's sound at all, but she understands that same idea, that impact matters more than speed. Her playing has strong attack, consistent tone, and most importantly, intent. She's not just playing through the kit, she's playing into it. And that's the first sign that something deeper is actually going on. The real test begins with phrasing, because phrasing is what separates a drummer who plays patterns from a drummer who shapes music. Bonham didn't just keep time. He responded to the band. He stretched ideas. He pulled against the groove. He made the drums feel like part of the conversation. Now, here's what's interesting about Akane. She does the same thing. Her fills don't feel inserted, they feel connected. There's a sense that she's listening and reacting in real time. This is what people mean when they talk about musical drumming. When you're talking about effective drumming like this, you have to factor in that every single groove, every single beat, every single fill is important and meaningful and expressive. Drummers who create in this way, like Neil Peart, often arrive at purely unique expressions and make it very difficult to follow in their footsteps. If you'd like a deeper dive into how this dynamic works, I have a video in the members section on Annika Niles and what might be the toughest part of Tom Sawyer for her to play live when Rush goes back out on tour this year. If you'd like to see that, hit the join button below. Meanwhile, in terms of Akane, this dynamic means that her drumming is also individualized. So my video here is not meant to suggest in any way that she's copying John Bonham. Instead, she's applying some of the principles he used to his drumming to her own and creating a unique style. Not complexity, not technique, but awareness. And that's something you can hear immediately, even if you're not a drummer. Here's the category where most drummers fail, because it requires restraint. John Bonham understood that what you don't play can be just as important as what you do play. He let his grooves breathe. He allowed tension to build. He trusted silence. This is where Akane Hirose really proves something, because despite her playing in a really high-energy modern band, she still leaves space. She doesn't fill up every gap. She lets the grooves sit, and when she does step in, it feels earned and meaningful. It's not just discipline, but musical judgment. So let's go back to the original idea. Sound versus image. Band-Maid has a strong visual identity. There's no getting around that. But here's the thing. If the image disappeared tomorrow, the drumming will still hold up, because what Akane does isn't primarily visual, it's primarily musical. And that's exactly what Bonham was talking about. You should be able to hear the truth. So, does Akane Hirose pass the John Bonham test? Well, if the test is based on raw power, musical phrasing, and understanding the space, the answer to all three of those is yes. But more importantly, she passes a deeper test. She doesn't just play drums, she plays music on the drums. And that's the standard that John Bonham set. Comparisons like this matter because they show that it's not about copying style, but about identifying a way of thinking with an instrument. And when you hear that kind of composition and ability in a modern player, it stands out immediately because it's effective. So, let me know what you think of Akane and John Bonham's approach to drumming in the comments below. And if you want to see more breakdowns like this, where modern players are tested against legendary standards, hit the subscribe button because that's exactly what this channel is about. Jimmy Page almost never talks about modern rock bands. He doesn't endorse them, he doesn't anoint them as the future. And he definitely doesn't show up to hype them. So when Jimmy Page quietly took notice of Band-Maid in Tokyo in 2016, it wasn't
Music Guru here, asking you to help us on our march to 10,000 subscribers.